Hey everybody, Dr. Dave Marquis here, and I wanted to talk to you about some fungus that's among us. It's always been among us, and yet it's being twisted so that it's something scary, but it's something that we've literally lived with forever. And that's the point that I wanted to make, that many of the things that we're exposed to in the media have been with us forever. And we just came out of a whole process of that, talking about viruses. So I just wanted to put some things into context and then talk a little bit about, fungus and mold, since it is a topic, and help people to understand that there is nothing to fear about that, because it will always be among us. Take viruses, for example. We've talked so much about those, but maybe people don't really realize how many we just inherently have with us. But it's in the neighborhood of like 300 trillion viruses that are part of our microbiome. And they always have been. They always will be. Bacteria, still an astronomical number in the tens of trillions that we have as part of our microbiome, and it exceeds our total cell count of the body. Now, molds, fungus, yeast, these are a whole nother classification. We don't have as many of those that are part of our microbiome, but they're still there. There's about 150-ish that we kind of live with, but there's really only about 6 that create a problem for us if we allow the circumstances to present that they become a problem. And I could say the same thing to be true about bacteria and viruses. So much of the problem with microbiome things is what we do and how we live, whether it's going to be a problem for us or not, because it's always been there and it always will be there. So with that as the backdrop, let's just talk about some of the molds and funguses that have kind of come to the surface, if you will, and we're now talking about them. So we've got this one in the Candida species, which I kind of found, and I don't want to laugh about anybody's health, but comical in the sense that about 30 years ago when I got out of school, it was actually kind of hard to communicate with many people in the medical profession about Candida because they didn't think that it really existed. And now it's on nighttime news about how it's killing people. And there are some people that will die from infections of all types if their health circumstances allow their body to become such good hosts and hostesses to these species of molds, yeast, bacteria, viruses. Doesn't matter what it is. If we're a good host or hostess, then we become susceptible. So it's all about the terrain. It's not about the thing in the environment. And that's kind of a good background principle. Think of your body as the terrain. Is my terrain hospitable to stuff that I don't want growing in me? Well, if so, what can I do to change that? And that's a common theme about anything relative to health. Because not only is our state of mind important, but it's our physiology. Is it conducive to allowing stuff to grow in and on us? Because if it's not, it's going to go find another home to live in. And speaking of homes, sometimes we allow these things to live in our homes, and that's when it does become problematic for us. Because when you walk into a space where you've got higher than normal concentrations of viruses, bacteria, mold, spores, and fungi, and your terrain is weak, well, then you're going to become the new house. You're going to become a hospitable host and say, hey, yeah, come on in. And they don't know any different. They just look for a good place to live. What are some things that you can do to make your body less hospitable? Well, making sure that your pH is appropriate is number one. In westernized countries, so many people are using pH blockers to keep their stomach acidity basically neutral to alkaline that they knock out one of their first defenses that they have. And that's just asinine to me, that we would take away the initial capacity to digest anything and block things that we're swallowing. Because we're all breathing and swallowing mold spores and viruses and bacteria all day long. They're around us. And typically, if we have good stomach acid and our pH is appropriate, the stuff dies as it's going down the pipe and it just comes out in our stool. Not a problem, right? When we block our pH, we change that environment, and now we have to depend on our immune system to respond. Well, people's immune systems are becoming more taxed and weak because our immune system is integrally related to our microbiome. One of the things that we've done about our microbiome is we've become hyper clean. And we've kind of destroyed our surface microbiome with becoming hyper clean. We've destroyed our home microenvironment by making it hyper clean. And we've destroyed our food by nuking it and overcooking it and overprocessing it so that it no longer has its own microbiome in it. We've basically tried to live in this sterile environment, and in sterile environments, a new microbiome will take over because it's opportunistic. Every single one of those things that we talked about, they're opportunistic species. So we need to stop giving them opportunities, but that's all we do. And we keep thinking that, oh, we can be cleaner. No, you can't be cleaner. You need to embrace the microbiome. You need to embrace each other's microbiome, and you need to make yours flourish. But to make yours flourish, you need your pH right. You need opportunity with foods and additional sources of good flora. This is where I love to have people start to reintroduce flora orally and rectally. Make sure that it's going through this whole pipe, and you're covering that pipe thoroughly with a broad spectrum of species, because biodiversity is super duper important to improve your immune response. I don't want you to think that hygiene is not important, because it is. It's just many of the things that we use to be hygienic have become problematic. So when we're using antibacterial soaps and when we're trying to sterilize surfaces over and over again, with many of these wipes that they provide for us as we go into stores or hospitals, or the little pump things where we're over-alcoholing our hands on a repeated basis, we're destroying our microbiome and giving opportunity for opportunistic species to move in on us. Basically, use water. Water works really well. And do wash your hands, and wash your nose, and clean out your mouth. Basically, think of this as a big pipe, because it is. And we need to make sure that our nails are clean, our hands are clean, our nose is clean, and our mouth is clean. But we don't want it sterile clean, where you're actually removing your microbiome over and over again. Our microbiome is designed to stay with us with water, but you'll wash off many of the things that you don't want because they're not supposed to be indigenous. And our microbiome is actually there to help protect us from the things that we don't want growing on us. If you're trying to keep your pH appropriate by using like bitters or hydrochloric acid and a little bit of bile and the things that will help this pipe function, you're working on your vagus nerve to make sure that it helps the body to produce more acidity in the stomach, because as the stomach acidity improves, you become lower pH, a little bit more acidic in the stomach, your tissue will become more alkaline, so your joints and your muscles and your tissues will feel better. But it all starts in the gut. And it starts in the gut for this whole conversation about the microbiome, and it starts in the gut for this whole conversation about tissue pH, and it starts in the gut for this whole conversation about our surface microbiome. They're all interrelated. And we can't partition those out and think that we could make them separate. You can't just sterilize your hands and think that you didn't just affect your gut. Because you're going to wipe your nose at some point in the day. You're going to scratch your ear. You're going to do something that's going to change your own flora. Okay, so taking that concept and placing it off on the side for a moment, I want you to realize that there are things in our home environment that can become problematic. And I've seen this with many patients where they've been exposed to molds in their home, and they've also become good hosts to yeast and fungi in their body, and I've seen it affect a whole milieu of issues in a person's body, whether it be brain health, gut health, skin health, nervous system at large. So it is a serious issue when people allow it to become one unknowingly. No one would actually choose to do this, but it does happen unknowingly to people. I have a patient family right now where they bought a home and their home was flooded underneath and they didn't know that. And so underneath the floorboards, mold was actually coming up underneath the carpet and into the drywall. And they're breathing these spores. Well, mold spores are 0.01 microns. This is as small as a virus. You can't see the thing. It's in the air, and that can actually go into the body. And if you're a good host or hostess, it's going to start to take root in you because you're a wet, moist, great place to grow. And if it grows in the sinuses, it can affect your brain. If it grows in the lungs, it's going to affect how you oxygenate yourself. And because it's so small, it can literally go transcellularly. It can go anywhere. Making sure that you are not a good host allows you to be in these environments and not be worried about it as much. Not that you should go there intentionally, but it won't impact you as much. And you'll see this in families where there's going to be a canary in the family. There might be 5 people in the family and one person really gets impacted because that person was more susceptible. So this is where understanding your own microbiome and susceptibility is a really root player in how you're going to deal with these things. Let's say you've got this environment in your home. The number 1 treatment is remove yourself from the source. The number 2 treatment is change your own flora so that you aren't susceptible to growing in it. Well, if the stuff is growing in you and you are susceptible and you're trying to make those changes, sometimes you need to do different things to allow for your body to become less and less hospitable. The third most important thing, remove all sugars from your diet, because mold, yeast, bacteria, they love sugar. So if you can eliminate these carbohydrates, empty carbohydrates from your diet, you're going to find that you're removing a food source. Then you can start to introduce things that make it harder and harder for mold, yeast, bacteria, fungi to grow in you. And that would be a whole group of things, but garlic is right at the top of the list. The allicin in garlic is a compound that actually mold cannot go around. Yeast cannot grow around. There's other things. So oregano oil, grapefruit seed extract. You can get tea tree, pau d'arco. There's a number of things in the botanical realm that can act as impediments to mold, yeast, fungi, and bacteria to grow. The other thing that people commonly will do is they'll try and change their diet and they'll think, well, I need to go gluten-free to eliminate this. No, it's really carbohydrate-free in that period of time. Because if you're just switching one grain for another, you've only traded what kind of sugar those things are getting fed by. And they don't care. You just got to reduce that load. And this is a time where embracing like a paleo keto realm can really become handy, because you're going to remove that food source but still support your own body as it needs to be. Now there's also binding agents that people can use. Things like activated charcoal, fulvic acid, humic acid, zeolite, many of the rare earth minerals. Those things help to bind and eliminate. Pectosol, love that one for binding and removing. And there are some things in the pharmaceutical realm. But one of the things that you'll hear on the media about treating, candidas and molds is that, oh my gosh, we're running out of drugs to treat it. Well, that's because these things, they're not necessarily intelligent, but they become resistant from things synthetically that we're trying to put upon them. If you always remember, they're only going to go to a good host. The primary treatment shouldn't be these drugs. The primary treatment should be everything that I just said. Remove their fuel source. Remove yourself from the environment. Change your own environment so they can't grow in you. Then use this whole broad array of microbiome supporting but fungi eliminating botanicals. That would be the group that I would encourage you to have on hand so that you can keep your flora in check. And then start to eliminate it with some of these binding agents. And some people still will need a pharmaceutical, but it'll be the last step. And you're going to have a whole array of pharmaceuticals available to you instead of starting there and creating this resistant nature of these organisms over and over again. That turns the whole table on its head. And to me, it's an asinine approach to always start with a bazooka when you could have gone in with a pea shooter. So change your paradigm in how to address these things, and always think about terrain. Is my terrain going to allow this to grow? The last thing that I want to talk about, I touched on diet, and I said the paleo keto realm would be a good place to live when you're working on molds. And I wanted to give you some ideas of that. It would largely be using some of those botanicals that we talked about, but then maybe throughout the day, working in a juicing realm where you're doing things like bone broth and green juices, not juicy juices, because those are sugar. So I'm not talking about carrots and beets and oranges and tangerines, because those are all fructose and they'll actually produce a fuel for these things. But things like kale, bok choy, mustard greens, I mean, they may not taste great, but they're dense and rich in terms of their phytonutrients, and they don't have any sugar value. Cucumbers, celery, things that will add water and moisture to your system. And then you could also add in some of the warming botanicals like turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, things that are also going to help to attenuate blood sugar in the body. And then lastly, have a meal at the end of the day so that you have something to look forward to, but make it something maybe again in the squash realm with some bok choy and some type of really clean meat. Maybe it's going to be salmon or some grass-fed beef, but something warming that is going to be very low glycemic so that you're not going to feed these things in your body. So juice throughout the day, use the binders, make sure your pH is right, make sure that you're hydrated appropriately. You'll find that your body will actually start to regulate itself. And then the very last thing is make sure that you have an awareness of how to diversify your own microbiome. There are so many different species and sources of good flora. Don't get stuck on one species. Rotate it every single month or every couple of months. Don't get hung up on one family. You know, there's so many out there. Find the ones that work well for you and start to make your own little catalog, because we're all unique. It's literally like a fingerprint. Okay, I hope that was helpful. There's a lot of information. Don't live in fear about molds, yeast, bacteria, or anything for that matter. We never make a good decision in fear. Always try and garner as much information as you can about your own health, because it's our terrain that really dictates who we're going to be at the end of the day. Be well.